So hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining in and for tuning in. This webinar is powered by Think Pricing. My name is Franz. I'm co-founder of Think Pricing. And today we are very much looking forward to a short webinar on why you need to have a pricing process. The overall structure, and to just guide you through how we're going to use our new tool, which is called Webinar Ninja. If you scroll down, there's actually some opportunities for you to interact with the community that is currently live. Also, first of all, you can actually answer questions. So you can type in any questions that you have. You can also use chat functions if you want. There's also a so-called poll function. So during the webinar, I will actually run a poll and I will ask you to scroll down to answer the questions. There's a pretty nice feature to actually interact with you. And that's it basically for the operational pieces. Whenever you have something, just type it in, send it through. If audio is bad, just let me know. I'm trying to fix it. And we are ready to go. As said, we are running our first webinar, so we are very much looking forward to getting your feedback also afterwards. Today's focus is around why you need to have a pricing process. You're probably wondering, why are we speaking about pricing? The company Think Pricing is actually built to democratize pricing. So here at Think Pricing, we want to make pricing accessible for everyone out there. Everyone who actually prices. So we want to share previously gathered pricing knowledge. For your information, I'm working now more than 10 years in pricing, previously in airlines. Now we are running basically Think Pricing on the backbone of more than 10 years of pricing expertise. We also want to provide a forum for you guys to actually speak with other pricing managers and discuss and ideate around the topic of pricing. And we also want to promote the use of pricing as a strategic component. So this is why we started Think Pricing. Overall, we want to democratize pricing because we believe there's a need for this in the market. When we founded basically Think Pricing, we were asking ourselves, why are so many businesses struggling with pricing? Whenever we speak with customers, whenever we onboard on new topics on the topic of pricing with our clients, we found out that pricing is usually a struggle. And we were asking ourselves, why is this a big problem for so many businesses? First of all, I think, and all of us agree that are currently in the call, pricing is a very complex topic. Whenever I would ask you about what do you think about pricing, probably the answer is deviating quite a lot, what you consider pricing. And it's also depending on a lot of many external and internal factors. So overall, pricing is a very complex topic. Pricing also involves many areas of the business. So there are many stakeholders in pricing. You can imagine it's the guys who are actually dealing with the customer, so customer success. It involves the C-level, it involves the CEO, and it involves product. So it involves marketing. So there are many stakeholders who actually claim to have a call when it comes to pricing decisions. And everybody's claiming to be a pricing experts. So this makes it quite difficult if you want to maneuver around, or if you want to maneuver projects around pricing. The second thing, I think, which we all know and which we experienced is pricing is not a one-time fix. So it's an ongoing process. It's something that you need to ideate and work on constantly in order to make it a success. So this is why sometimes companies go in and they do a pricing one-time fix and believe that's done now. But honestly, it's a process. And this is why today we are focused on why this process is so utterly important for businesses. Fourth, there's obviously also a fear of failing. So I can speak from my experience. Whenever you speak about a price point, even for our own services, there's always this risk of, are we going too far? Are we pricing too low? How is the C-level thinking about this? So there's always a risk and there's a tendency of failure. And also, obviously, the reaction of stakeholders. How is my boss reacting if I change the price now? And the reaction of the customer is not as expected. So there's a fearing component on pricing, obviously. And as mentioned earlier, pricing is not the silver bullet. There's none, from our experience, there's not a single correct solution. So it evolves over time. And this is why, and this is stated very clearly from our side below, we believe the only way to really make pricing a success is around the process itself. So pricing will only succeed if you have the correct process in place. So this is why we today focus on the why, not on how this process works, but why it's so important. So let's start our webinar with what is a pricing process in our perspective? So what we are trying with Think Pricing, we are trying to make this very hands-on. So we are trying to give you advice. We are trying to share our know-how from the last projects around the topic of pricing and make it less artificial. So make it really a recommendations or something that you can actually take back to your business and actually start using. So a pricing process, what we want if you leave this webinar today is actually keep in mind that a pricing process is a structured way to evaluate your business and set your prices. So you need to look at your historic data, sales data, so transactional data or market data at any kind. You need to define how you want to price and how you want to make the change effective. You need to execute those changes. So this is also part of the process. And again, process also means it's not a one-time fix. It needs to rinse, it needs to be repeated. So this is what we in the future also will use as a pricing rule book. So you will find several articles from our side where we will refer to the pricing rule book. We will also cover this in a later section of today's webinar, what we think is a pricing rule book. You're probably also asking yourselves, I mean, we are joining a lot of other companies that are currently running webinars. I think for all it's the same situation. It's a current economic global pause. I mean, we all currently are at potentially home office. I mean, if I would share a picture on my setup, it looks professional. But honestly, behind the scenes, I hijacked the room of my little boy and set up this webinar in order to kind of provide the most professional experience. But I mean, be honest, we all kind of are working from home currently and all have to find our setups. However, at the moment, it's the time to actually rethink what are we doing? So we're doing the same thing within our company. So we are using this time now to prepare the future. We are thinking about how we can make our work more efficient. And at this point, I think we can just recommend you to also look at sales and to look at the opportunities in pricing. So now is actually a good time. I know it's not an easy time because maybe some of you are in short-term leaves or have reduced salaries. We know it's not an easy time, but if you want to be stronger in the future, now is the time. And I think from the register that we see to the webinar, there are a lot of pricing professionals taking part of this today. So use the time now in order to look forward and use this now. And for the pricing process, we can recommend is one of this and why this is important. So how can a pricing process actually help you? Overall, I mean, this is pretty clear, I think, for everybody who joined with a pricing background. It's the balancing act between making money, revenue, and the available supplies considered what you can actually sell, so the demand. So it's the balance between demand and supply in order to maximize your revenue overall. But the process itself also needs to take into account operational needs and challenges and your strategic goals. Yeah? So where do you want to go? Where do you want to bring your company? Where do you want to bring your department? So this needs to be part of when you speak about the strategy behind. And this is a very important piece. A process lets you actually react in a standard way and in a very strategic way and in a repeatable way to changing market conditions. I think this is the most important piece here to actually keep in mind that once you have this pricing rule book defined, you are acting in a predefined pattern. And I think this is very important when it comes data to how to measure success. So a pricing process is a strategic, but also a very structured way to react to market conditions. So very important piece to keep in mind. So again, we're trying to make this as simple as possible to take something home for today. So what you can do to make your pricing successful. Let's start in the beginning, top right corner, you need to have a pricing goal. So what's the business problem that you're trying to solve? So you need to have a pricing goal. Second, ideally, you have historic transaction data or you have data that's been gathered with market research. So those are two very important starting points. So where do you want to go? And your historic performance data. The third important piece, and this you can basically also either gather with market research or based on own analytics, is understanding your customers and your customer behaviors, understanding who's buying your tickets, when they are buying them, what products are they buying. So this is very important. Connected to those three things are actually, how do you want your prices to change? So you need to have a basic understanding. It's connected to the pricing goal. How do you want to change your prices? And also, when do you want to change your prices? And once this is set, I think in order to make pricing successful, and I've mentioned this before, you can actually measure it. So once you have a pricing process that runs in a standard way in order to achieve a strategic goal, you can measure it. And this is the important piece, measuring the success once you run the pricing process. When we look into the two components of a pricing process, and please bear in mind, again, we are talking today about the why you need to have a pricing process. We have more and more content prepared for the next webinars coming up when we speak about the individual steps that need to be taken within the company or within departments to actually run the pricing process. For today, we are focusing on the why. And the why is important because in our definition, or in how we run our projects and how we serve our customers, and also with Think Pricing now, is that we think in two components. The first one is actually on the left side is setting the frame. So you need to have a strategy, you need to have a governance, and this is interacting with the execution piece. And honestly, from more than 10 years pricing experience now, I can tell you, we are finding a lot of examples where one or the other is done very good, but it's not connected. So it's very important to connect both pieces. So on the one side, understanding that you need to have a strategy, that you need to have a frame and a guideline, you need to have, you need to understand what's your goal, where you're going for. And the second piece is then the execution. So examples include in setting the frame, there are big strategies called out in pricing, but they're not executed well, they're not measured well, they don't have the tools available to actually run them. On the other side, we have examples where people just deploy software and just don't know how to use it and don't know where to use it and what's the goal actually of deploying a software. So key message here is those two components, setting the frame, strategy, and the executions are integrated parts. They need to basically work together. And this is important in order to make the pricing process successful. How this can actually look like, I'd like to share with you one example. I mean, it's an example that most of you probably, at least from an industry perspective, heard when it comes to revenue management. But me, as I worked in the airline, I'd like to share with you the process, the general understanding of how and why this process is so important, for example, for an airline. So let's look at this example. On the right side, you see the airplane taking off. I'm pretty sure, at least in Germany, in the next weeks, we are looking forward to more aviation activities. So the overall aviation sector is basically recovering. So there will be more flights taking off. But the key message here is, again, bear in mind, set the frame and execution. And when you look at this process, most of the people that actually think about pricing in airlines connect this to revenue management. So actually the actual booking, so the actual doing of changing booking classes, the actual change in price on certain web pages or on GDSs. So the real things that actually the customer sees and the customer faces. What is important is to bear in mind that this is actually the last piece of the execution. There's a lot more stakeholders involved before it actually comes to the pricing decision, so the execution at the customer endpoint. So it is connected to a lot more stakeholders. It's obviously also connected to a lot more information. And the only thing that actually makes a successful revenue management is the integrated process that it's laying behind. So it all starts with, for example, the fleet planning. So a 5 to 10 year horizon, what aircrafts do we get? The flight plan, what capacities do we have available? The pricing strategy itself. So how do we want to price against competition? What is the data that we can actually gather out of this? So it's all connected. And an interesting piece is, once this is done, so once actually prices are changed and you can measure how people are actually buying, there's a loop, because this information is actually looping back for the whole strategy piece again. Main message here is, again, the pricing process involves a lot of different stakeholders. So this is why it is so important to have a pricing process. The example shown here should indicate or should also share our view on how we think when we think about pricing. It's the strategy and the execution piece. Breaking down in the airline world, it's starting with the fleet planning and basically ending with the actual revenue management. So in the future, if somebody tells you something about revenue management, you should challenge them, first of all, do you speak about revenue management or do you speak about pricing? What pieces of price optimization are you talking about? And then it's actually, if you consider it, it's floating back to the original fleet planning. So it's an integrated process within the airline. I can tell you, without a very streamlined and efficient process, the airlines wouldn't be able to fly anywhere today in the future. Again, what we are trying to do is deliver some short and to the point messages for you to take home and to think about, and I'm connecting to the original point of why this now is a good time. So for us, the main goal is to share some ideas and to share our concepts around pricing and the pricing process. So here are 8 steps that we believe can be taken in order to make pricing a success. First, and I've mentioned this before, you need to identify your business problem. Every business, it's a grocery or it's a soccer club or it's an entertainment venue, they all have a certain business problem. So identify the business problem, prioritize the business problem. Also learning, obviously, is select a sponsor. Without C-level sponsorship or superior sponsorship, I think this is something that needs to be as a prerequisite in order to make projects a success. We have examples where sponsorship wasn't given, and then this is a huge risk. So business problem, identify, select a sponsor, create a task force. Why task force? Because as mentioned earlier, a lot of departments are involved. Marketing, communication, C-level CEO, product management, customer success, press, tech, data science, e-commerce. So there are a lot of different departments involved when you speak about pricing. So you need to have them on board in order to work on pricing. You need to tell them what business problem you're trying to solve. The third is embracing the 3 phases of pricing. And we are speaking, the 3 phases come in a second. We speak about analyzing, simulation, and execution. Those are the 3 phases that we think in pricing are important when it comes to the execution piece. The fourth step is finding the parameters that impact your goal. So once you have identified the business problem, ideally you have historical transaction data. We know it's not easy to get for some of you. So look at your historic transaction data and try to identify how they are impacted by your business problem and how maybe a change in a parameter can solve a business problem, which is then obviously connected to PINE 5, connecting and analyzing your historical sales data, creating the pricing playbook. This is a term I've mentioned it earlier. In the future, we will use in all our materials potentially is the pricing playbook, because we believe in structured and thought through an analytical way in approaching pricing. 7 is then obviously getting the buy-in from the CEO or the chief commercial officer. And this is a very important step. It's not easy, I can tell you. Don't stop. Because once you start this, you potentially will fail. There will be areas that you don't price well. There will be mistakes that you make. But the important piece is playbook, because you can make sure you can understand and analyze the failures or the things that are not going well, and those that are going well, and you can iterate and learn on them and move forward. So don't stop. Yeah, this is an important piece. Even if there are small failures in the beginning, even if there are maybe some customer reactions, learn on them and move on. So please don't stop. We are building this brand, or we are building Think Pricing also around the community idea. Because personally, I believe, I mean, I've worked for consulting companies, I've worked for the airline business, I've built the own business now for many years now. We're now in year 5, was with another company connected to pricing. And what we've learned over time is, I think that pricing is something that is very locked away. So we want to democratize pricing. We want to make pricing available for everybody who actually sets the price. So who should join this community? Everybody who sets a price. And everybody who thinks that actually their business could do better if they would look into pricing more structured and more professionally. And obviously everybody who wants to learn more about pricing and what positive impact actually pricing can have on their business and on their revenue. Why you should join, I mean, we've mentioned this before. In the next weeks, there will be more webinars, there will be more content. We have a white paper just released. We are sharing know-how because we believe that democratizing pricing, it's now the right time to do it. And this is why we built this company. This is why we built Think Pricing. It's a great opportunity to interact with other peers, with other industry experts that actually have maybe in a different industry, but same problems. And you potentially can interact with them on a regular basis. I can tell you, and you've all have experienced this with all the video call opportunities now, I think it's a cost-effective way to share knowledge, to get in touch with other people in order to learn for yourself and share knowledge. So it's a great opportunity. We will drive this forward in the next weeks. And obviously, also with Think Pricing, there will be early access to pricing tools that can actually help solving your business problem. So this is why we built Think Pricing. Upcoming events, this is very important. We will keep the webinars very short and to the point, so we don't make 1.5 hours webinars. I've participated in a couple of them. I found them quite exhausting. So the webinars will be to the point. They try to be hands-on. Their main goal is to democratize pricing, to break away the protection that some of the companies have. We want to make it accessible. So here's a look, here's a projection what's coming up in the next webinars. In June, we will run a webinar on pricing analytics. So we will give insights into how our data science team actually works and how they run the projects. We will run a second or third, actually, webinar on what we call Community Edition. So we will bring from our network pricing experts from all around the globe, from different industries, and you have the opportunity to ask them questions that you want to have answered. So I think it's a great opportunity to actually interact with the community. The fourth webinar that is planned is what is the price optimization itself. So we will look deeper into single pieces of the pricing process and focus on the pricing optimization and execution piece. So digging into this, how you actually can optimize a price. There's more to come. There's more webinars. There's more content to be shared. Please stay with us. We are embarking here on a journey I'm personally thinking is the right direction. It's the direction of making pricing know-how accessible for everybody at a very good price point, and we are very much looking forward to moving the webinars also to next levels. Obviously, this was a very short and to the point. We are now at 20 minutes. Again, bear in mind today's focus was on why you need to have a pricing process. We tapped into some of bits of pieces, and we will use this as a storyline to also, as described earlier, to dig deeper in a later stage. Next webinar will be around analytics. So overall, thank you very much for now for tuning in. There's now the opportunity for Q&As in my direction. Any question that you have to the team of Think Pricing, please feel now free to answer the questions. Some of you have sent questions before. There was a question around what tool set did we develop so far. Yeah, we've as mentioned earlier, we've built a company, Think Pricing, on the backbone of the company called SmartPricer. SmartPricer is now active in the market for more than 5 years. We are coming out of the ticketing business, and previous to this, we were working in the consulting and aviation business. So aviation business and consulting. Then we founded SmartPricer. We've built a lot of customized solution for big customers, big corporates around the world, mainly focused also in the ticketing business. We've now, on the backbone of all our know-how, built a company of Think Pricing. The tool set that we are bringing out, I mean, it starts obviously at what you are listening today, because we will focus on the topic of education. So we will make know-how available, and we will publish white papers. We want to democratize the pricing. And secondly, and I think this is the underlying business case behind this journey of Think Pricing, we are building a platform. We are building a pricing platform in order to make this globally available for everybody, in order to run very powerful pricing simulation. This is a platform that from the more than 10 years experience that we've had, there's no comparable company doing this at this point of time. The official launch of the platform will be in summer this year. So we are currently ramping everything up towards the launch of the platform, and the team is working very hard to make this possible. One of the other questions that were raised before actually the talk was around if I have examples around successful or bad pricing processes, and this was an interesting one. Obviously bad, I have a lot of them. I thought about a good example, and I will share one example from a company from the entertainment sector. It's called Friedrichstadtpalast. It's a big entertainment venue in Berlin, Germany, where our company is located. And you have to understand that the German ticketing and entertainment market is something that is, when you consider how well they are involved when it comes to pricing, still in the early stage. But 2 years ago, they embarked on a journey to improve their pricing, and they started implementing a pricing process which can be improved. I'm I'm in close contact with them, but they started working on a strategic pricing process. So they have once or two times a year, they meet on the strategic goals, they look into the data, they align it with the CEO. If they are still on the right track when it comes to numbers, they align with the strategy. And then the same team actually moves into the execution and the operation, where they have regular weekly meetups, where they look into the data, where they speak about how they can optimize the pricing process. They also involve many stakeholders, from the box office to the marketing team. So everybody sits in one room, and this is quite powerful. It sounds so simple, but bringing together a lot of stakeholders, looking into the same data set and understanding and having different views on it is so powerful. And you don't have this, I don't support you in this journey, because once they started the project, marketing was a fan of it. Suddenly the box office was liking it. So they really developed a task force around this topic. And I think this is, I mean, it's a very simple way, but though considering the market conditions and the way how pricing is considered in ticketing, I would consider this as a success. Failures, I have a couple of them, many, starting with do prices without analytics. This is, I think, the most straightforward one, where prices are being changed without one proper analytics, super dangerous. Or running or changing prices without understanding customers or customer behavior. And even topping this, then thirdly, actually, once you do this, you don't measure. So you do the price change and you don't measure in the end. So again, the pricing playbook plays an essential role, plays an essential role, because it is a structured way to actually measure your success in the end. So I think there are more examples around what's not working. Question is this more important for B2C or B2B? For now, our business or Think Pricing is more focusing on B2B. This is so our customers are usually, so to explain this, our customers are usually larger corporates, where we support basically with a tool. Obviously, at the end, everybody's selling goods to customers in the end. So let's stay with the ticketing example. Our clients are, for example, sports clubs or larger entertainment productions or ski resorts. In the end, we help them in pricing better. We want to make them aware of the power of pricing, but in the end, the price point needs to be shipped to the customer. There's the interaction between the customer and the point of sale in the end. Where also, I mean, we can have a complete different talk on this, how you actually ship the prices then to the customer. But for now, our company, Think Pricing, we are serving customers basically from B2B. So our clients are B2B customers, but obviously the clients are selling products to B2C in the end. Yeah. I would leave 1 or 2 minutes more for questions. I actually would do the poll in the meantime, if this would be great. There is a poll now. If you scroll down, I'm not sure you are aware. You can actually scroll down in Webinar Ninja, and you can actually see the poll. The question is, why don't you have a pricing process? Please have a look. And if you have the time, I would be very happy if you could answer one or the other question. All right. As mentioned earlier, I think our main goal is keep this short and to the point in order to deliver something for you guys to take home. Again, on demand, this video will be available for you. Please check out Think Pricing. Please follow us on LinkedIn. There's more content that we are putting out. And we are very much looking forward to seeing you guys again in June on the next webinar. Please also invite people that you know that could be interested around the topic of pricing analytics. So we are very much looking forward to embarking on this journey, and we hope you liked it. Please also share your feedback if you think we could improve something. Please let us know, and I will let my little boy back in his room now. So I appreciate that you took the time to listen to me. and we are very happy that you dialed in. So thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great day. Please stay safe and healthy, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys soon. Bye bye.